Good afternoon. It is Thursday. I am Dr. Tanji Reed Marshall. It's time for another week of Let's Talk Power Live. So, who am I? Dr. Tanji Reed Marshall. I am the CEO and principal consultant of Liaison Educational Partners, where we help educational entities be who they say they are. We do that by focusing on curriculum, instruction, and the culture of the environment, making sure that every student has access to and receives the excellent education that they deserve. And because today is Thursday, I get to take a moment and pause to think about what makes me happy and what I'm thankful for. Today, I'm thankful for, I'm actually late. I usually start at noon. We had some computer glitches. I say I love computers and technology until I don't. I was a little bit discombobulated today because I'm actually in an airport coming from an organization. I'm part of the Bow Collective, and we had our annual conference this past week, actually. And so I'm here in the airport getting ready to go home, but I wanted to make sure that I came here. So I'm thankful for one, getting the technology right. Number two, having a wonderful experience at the Bow Collective. And then number three, being able to be here with you today. And so let's go ahead and get started. As always, I'm going to ask you to do a couple things. I'm going to go ahead and show you what I've got on screen for you today. And the first thing I always ask you is number one, do you have a copy of Understanding Your Instructional Power? I ask it every week because from what I know, that gave me the pleasure to create this. It was a gift to me to give to the world. I believe it is a gift. I know it is because whenever someone reads it, what they tell me is it changed how we thought about the culture in our environment that impacted the instruction. And so make sure you get your copy. I'm going to give you an opportunity to get a signed copy if you would like, but go ahead and scan that QR code so you can get a copy of our book. Let's get started. This week, as last week, I started a series, The Power in History. History is a battleground. This is the inherent power in it. And so this week, I want to start off with this quote from Carter G. Woodson. And Carter G. Woodson is really instrumental in the fact that this is Black History Month. Started Black History Week, and then it turned into Black History Month. But here is what Carter G. Woodson had to say in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro. And I'm going to read it to you. It says, if you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. If you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status. He will seek for it himself. If you can make a man think that he is justly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told. And if there is no back door, his very nature will seek it. I chose this quote for this week because we're going to talk about a really significant individual, but I chose this particular quote because public education in the United States really is under attack. No matter how you slice it, no matter how you say it, no matter how you try to sugarcoat it, it's under attack. The very thinking of young people is under attack. Whenever you work in a concerted legal manner to remove access to information, that is Carter G. Woodson's quote in evidence. It is the manifestation of his quote. But this week, I wanted to talk about a really significant person, Robert Smalls. If you don't know about Robert Smalls, I'm going to give you a snapshot, but I want you to go ahead and look him up. He was an enslaved individual, and he became an educator and a lawmaker. Okay, he was enslaved, and then he escaped slavery by commandeering a Confederate ship. I want you to think about that. Like the complexity of doing that, the danger inherent in that, what could have happened to him if he had been found out not to be who he was perpetrating himself to be. And then he became a Civil War hero. And then he became one of the first, if not the first, Black U.S. Congress people in history. In Reconstruction, right after the Civil War, he became a U.S. Congressperson. He was voted into office by a wide group, a conglomerate of people that decided that he was who he said he needed to be and that he was the right person to lead them. And then he fought for public education. He became, because of Robert Smalls' efforts, South Carolina has free public education. And his work became the model for free public education nationwide. And so his blueprint is this: in 1868, South Carolina, the Constitution, Smalls helped draft it, making free public education a right in South Carolina. And then it became the first statewide public education system in the South, becoming the model for free public education across the nation. I know we're taught that public education began in Massachusetts in the 1700s, 1767, I believe. And that is correct, but it's incomplete because public education in the North at that time, actually, public education across the country was reserved for rich, wealthy, white families. And what Smalls advocated for was for free public education for all citizens of the United States. That's why his is a model that I wanted to highlight this week, because his model was for all students. And then he actually fought for and secured the necessary public funding to ensure that the system of free public education was in fact free and public to all. But given the country in which we live, we know that whenever there is wholesale advancement, we have a scarcity mentality in this country where we believe that the advancement of one group is the related concomitant scarceness and pie reduction, resource reduction of another. So particularly of those groups that are devalued and dehumanized in our country. And so the backlash was swift, it was violent, and it undid a lot of what Smalls fought for. And so after the Reconstruction, there was violent white lawmaker and white citizenry backlash that undid the advancement of Black people across the nation, rolling back laws and then instituting Jim Crow laws across the South in a hard way, right? But then Jim Crow laws, Jim Crow practice, I will say, Jim Crow practice in the North, where it wasn't on the books that a Black person had to step off the sidewalk when a white person was approaching them, or there were white only signs, but the practices of Jim Crow, the isolation, the lack of access to opportunity, the relegating people to substandard housing and locking them out of education was in full effect in the North. And then we see the connection to modern times. We see this rolling back. We see the weakening of public education and public access. And so right now, we are experiencing the war on public education 3.0. I say 3.0 because it has been under attack since Robert Smalls really began to advocate and push for this. But what are we seeing? We are seeing this book ban and curricular censorship across the nation. You know, the Penn Institute, over the last, I'd say 3 or 4 years, more than 15,000 texts have been removed. So if we think back to the Carter G. Woodson quote, If you can control a man's thinking, the removal of text is an avenue for thought control. It is a reductionist perspective. It is a tactic meant to ensure that young people come out of 12 years of schooling with a particular ideology and a particular perspective on what it means to be an American citizen. Now, let me be clear. I am not against the socializing practices of schooling. We all need to have a common understanding of what it means to be an American citizen. But we also need the skills, the thought processes to put and advance critiques when and where they are necessary. And any great civilization is never going to be afraid of its citizens engaging in the rightful, important, critical work of social, historical, economic critique. And to remove books from shelves, to curtail what educators can teach, is an act of reduction, is an act of limiting our young people's ability to become the thinkers we say we want them to be. So, public schools are also being defunded. If you have paid attention, if you and you may not have known the current assault through SB 5384, through HB 369, through the president's most recent call saying he's going to put forth an executive order to do it, another Republican House Representative House of Representative Congressman put forth another bill to dismantle the Department of Education that Jimmy Carter put in place back in the late 70s. And what's going to happen if any of those things happen, we will see a dismantling and a curtailment of needed services. And let me be honest, this curtailment, this reduction, this movement of, and this breaking down of the Department of Education is going to hurt those states that voted for the president the most, those rural counties that rely on Title I funds because their schools are high poverty. They rely on Title II funds that allow for their educators to become excellent through professional development. It's going to have impact. It's going to impact their food programs. And so, want to be clear that is there waste in government? Duh, there's waste everywhere. But waste does not mean that what they're doing has to be taken out because what they're doing, you don't like them doing it, right? You don't want them feeding children. And I want us to think about that. That some of what's being proposed is actually going to ensure that children don't get food. We are a country that says we care. Public education should be a national right. Children should not be in the ping pong game of adults. And so what's happening is through voter suppression goes hand in hand with education because it begins to curtail who can vote, where they can vote, how they can vote, making it harder. And if our young people are not being taught, if the educational system is reducing curriculum, then they cannot make informed decisions. That means that they're likely to vote in ways that are harmful to them. So this is why I'm calling this the War on Education 3.0. And so the power move, what can educators do in this time at every level? Every educator has an opportunity to do something. So first of all, if you're a state leader, you need to be pushing for fair funding and to protect history curricula. If the move that the current administration wants to put in place, significant dollars are going to be coming out of particular programs going into the Treasury Department, and the Treasury Department is going to disseminate that money through block grants. So they will not be earmarked for Title I or Title II or the IDEA funding. That funding will not be earmarked anymore. They'll just be getting blocked grants. So if in fact this happens at the state level, you've got to know that you have to be working now to think through how to protect the funding, the funding of those areas, particularly your most vulnerable schools in the highest need areas. If you're a district leader, got to engage with your community, let them know what's happening, help them be sure that the resources that your classes and schools are getting remain equitable. We say we care about kids. If we care about kids, then having an equitable, excellent education helps every child, not just some. It helps every child. And at the school level, protect your teachers from all the noise. Protect them from the noise, protect them from rogue parents, protect them from the community that's trying to ensure that only a single story gets told and not the full, complex, beautiful, challenging story of America gets told. And then at the teacher level, it's really important that you do the hard work of teaching our full story of education in partnership with your leaders, making sure that you are in communication constantly with parents, letting them know what you're doing, inviting them into the classroom, opening the doors for wide, broad conversation. The War on Education 3.0 requires a full assault to push back on what's happening. I know a lot of educators voted for this administration. We're a free country. You get to vote for who you want to vote for. And I respect your vote. However, at the same time, want to be challenging that vote because what's happening is the result of a vote that is now hurting the very students you probably say you care about. Because if this administration does what they say they're going to do, the war is going to escalate on education. And so, education is power, history is power. The power in history is so strong that the forces are marshaling against it. And anytime someone wants to take something away from you, or they're making it so hard for you to get it, the question is, what's there that they're trying to keep from me? And how can I make sure that they don't keep it from me? We are in the information age, so you're able to get access to so much information. Our students deserve an excellent education. The Life of Robert Smalls, the quote of Carter G. Woodson, is the blueprint for what needs to happen. Our students deserve the power in education to be taught in schools so that they become informed citizens, able to walk empowered, able to use their agency to make the decisions that are best for their lives. But they cannot do that if, in fact, their curriculum is being curtailed and they don't have access to the widest amount, the widest breadth and depth of information so that they can become informed decisions. The power in history is the fact that they're trying to keep it from us. We have to make sure that the power in education remains strong and the power in history remains untouched. And so that's all I have for you this week. But I also want to go ahead and invite you to please remember, go ahead and scan that QR code, type in that bit.ly link so that you can get connected to and registered for the Power Shift experience. And when I say Power Shift, I mean Power Shift. I'm going to be talking about how power impacts the brain. We're going to be talking about how power moves on a continuum of consent. We're going to be talking about how to revolutionize the culture and build authentic student agency creative environments. And we're going to really talk about how to disrupt discipline that is harmful to kids. So please go ahead, scan the QR code, put that in the bit.ly, put your bit.ly link there. And also, if you want a signed copy of Understanding Your Instructional Power, I'm going to put a banner up here right now of my website. That is the website you want to go to right now. Go to my website, go to the books page. You'll be able to get a link. It'll take you to the opportunity to go ahead and get your signed copy from me. And let's keep talking as always. If you want to talk about the environment that you're living in and you see your culture is breaking down, I've got a solution for you. So go ahead, scan the QR code. Let's be in conversation together. And I look forward to seeing you next week for another session of Let's Talk Power Live. We're going to wrap up Black History Month, and I got some great information for you. So have a great rest of the week. Be thankful because it's Thursday, and I'll see you next week for Let's Talk Power Live.